نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ليس عليكم جناح أن تبتغوا فضلا من ربكم فإذا أفضتم من عرفات فاذكروا الله عند المشعر الحرام واذكروه كما هداكم وإن كنتم من قبله لمن الضالين ثم أفيضوا من حيث أفاض الناس واستغفروا الله إن الله غفور رحيم فإذا قضيتم مناسككم فاذكروا الله كذكركم آباءكم أو أشد ذكرا فمن الناس من يقول ربنا آتنا في الدنيا وما له في الآخرة من خلاق ومنهم من يقول ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار أولئك لهم نصيب مما كسبوا والله سريع الحساب. Respectful honorable friends, the ruku that we are currently busy with and the ruku before it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had making mention of Hajj. Various different injunctions of Hajj had been mentioned. At the start of this ruku, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made mention of with regard to Hajj that there shouldn't be rafas, fusuq and jidal, lewd talk or deed, actions, transgression or any form of arguing and fighting. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned how important it was that a person takes with him some forms of provisions, and that the best of provisions were taqwa. Further, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again makes mention with regard to some specific rules of Hajj. ليس عليكم جناح أن تبتغوا فضلا من ربكم فإذا أفضتم من عرفات فاذكروا الله عند المشعر الحرام واذكروه كما هداكم وإن كنتم من قبله لمن الضالين. In it Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ليس عليكم جناح, there is no harm upon you, أن تبتغوا, that you seek فضلا من ربكم, the grace from your Rabb. فإذا قضيتم من عرفات فإذا أفضتم من عرفات, and when you have completed the Arafat, فاذكروا الله, then remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala عند المشعر الحرام, at the place of Haram, Mash'ar al-Haram. واذكروه كما هداكم, and remember him as he has guided you. وإن كنتم من قبله لمن الضالين, although you were before it من الضالين, from those who were unaware. And here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions a few various different things. One is in which he says that لَيْسَ عَلَيْكُمْ جُنَاحٌ, there is no harm upon you, أَن تَبْتَغُوا فَضْلًا مِّن رَبِّكُمْ, that you search for the grace, you search for grace from your Rabb. Fadl here means sustenance. During the days of Jahiliyyah, when the mushrikeen of Makkah used to go for Hajj, at the same time during the days of Hajj, special markets would also take place in the days of Hajj. People from other places would come and put up stall, and goods from different places would be on sale. So along with the Hajj, but obviously at that time the Hajj wasn't as it is in our times, these were in the days of Jahiliyyah, so it was also a case of merrymaking at the same time, as we'll do further on. So at the same time people would come and put their stalls out, and people would wait for that. It used to be like a fair, a mela in other words. It would be like a mela. where there will be fun and everything taking place, and at the same time people put their stalls and all these type of things. Now after Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala obviously brought discipline into the deeds of the believers. Hajj was carried out in a disciplined manner. Now obviously during the days of Hajj, you will still get some people who may need to work in order to sustain a living. They may want to go for Hajj also, but at the same time they still need to work. So then the Sahaba, obviously a question arose within them, that would it be permissible for them to still do some form of work during the days of Hajj? A person once asked Sayyidina Ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, and he said to him that I have very camels, and I give these out for rent. In those days that was, you wouldn't hire cars, you would hire camels. And you say that people who want to go for Hajj, obviously, they would rent these camels from me, and I would also go along with them. So it wasn't a case of whether they had insurance to just go and take it or not. Obviously the owner would go with them and travel with them. So he asked that in this manner people pay for the animals, and he joins them, they come for Hajj, and he also comes to Hajj with them. So he asked Sayyidina Ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala an whether it was permissible or not. Sayyidina Ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala replied that on one occasion a person came to Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and asked exactly the same question. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam at the time did not reply to him, didn't give him any answer. And not long after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this verse, لَيْسَ عَلَيْكُمْ جُنَاهٌ أَن تَبْتَغُوا فَضْلًا مِّن رَبِّكُمْ. And when this verse was revealed, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam then called for this Sahabi and told him that it is permissible for you, your Hajj will be accepted. Which means that if a person during days of Hajj has to do some form of business, it is allowed and it is permissible. However, as long as the intention of the journey of Hajj should not be for the purpose of the business. That a person thinks, let me go for Hajj and take some goods from here, it's season time so I'll sell well. No. But rather it should be a case wherein a person thinks this way, that he's going with the intention of Hajj, as he would go, he needs to perform his Hajj, etc. And at the same time, I might take a few things with me, and if I can sell it, then fair enough. So if he goes with this intention, that his main priority is the Hajj, then it is permissible for him to do business. And business means either a person sells some goods, because there may be times when people can benefit of goods from other countries at the time, or it could also mean wherein a person helps out, does some voluntary work there, or he does some other forms of work. For example, he helps with the slaughtering of, at the time of Qurbani, he sees to the distributing of the meat. Any of this type of work he does, and at the same time he performs his Hajj, this will be permissible for him. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that لَيْسَ عَلَيْكُمْ جُنَاحٌ, that there shall be no harm upon you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't say that it is haram upon you, neither does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that yes, it is permissible for you, but the words that He uses is لَيْسَ عَلَيْكُمْ جُنَاحٌ, that there is no harm upon you. Meaning that the preferred thing is that a person does not do it. Because one is somebody asks you, is it allowed or not? One is yes, it's allowed, fair enough, go ahead, do it. You tell them do it, or no, it's not permissible. And one is you tell a person, well, there's no harm in doing it. So obviously that means that it is better that you don't do it, but if you do need to do it, then there won't be any harm in it. So not that it means that now when you go also you make sure that you pack another suitcase full of some UK goods or something that you know that will sell well there, but it means that if a person for some reason has to work there and he goes and he works, for example, you might have where people are nurse or doctors and these type of thing, and he knows that if he goes there he'll get a job, he can work also, and at the same time he can perform his Hajj. As long as the intention should be of performing the Hajj, which is a priority, it is allowed for him to seek sustenance along with the Hajj. So لَيْسَ عَلَيْكُمْ جُنَاحٌ, there shall be no harm upon you, أَن تَبْتَغُوا, that you seek فَضْلًا مِّن رَبِّكُمْ, the grace from your Rabb. فَضْلًا, which translates as grace, here refers to wealth. Elsewhere also we know in the Quran Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has referred to wealth as fazlan. In Surah Jumu'ah also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that وَابْتَغُوا مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ, that فَإِذَا قُضِيَتِ الصَّلَاةُ فَانْتَشِرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ, that when the Salat of Jumu'ah is complete, فَانْتَشِرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ, then disperse, go onto the earth, وَابْتَغُوا مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ, and search from the grace of Allah, meaning that search for your sustenance, your rizq. And here the words used are فَضْلًا مِنْ رَبِّكُمْ, grace from your Rabb. It doesn't say and seek from the grace of your qualifications, or from the grace of your boss, from the grace of your occupation, but it says فَضْلًا مِنْ رَبِّكُمْ, seek the grace from your Rabb, which shows us that rizq, rozi, is granted to a person merely from the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is not dependent upon a person's qualifications, a person's type of job that he has, but it is merely based upon the fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why you find today's time, many parents, when it comes to making a decision what they want to do with the child, now the child will see he's going to madrasa, mashallah, he hears his ustad telling him that by become a hafiz, become a maulisa, become an alim or something. And this child, he likes it, he likes the idea. A lot of kids here, mashallah, they say, I want to become Mufti Saheb. But that's probably because, if they become Mufti Saheb, they can shout and the other kids bully the other kids, probably. And they don't have to get bullied. But they don't realize Mufti Saheb was also bullied. Or rather say, disciplined. So, they have these intentions, but then when they speak to the parents, and the parents are told, okay, send them to the madaris, send them to the madrasa, they'll become alims or hafiz, etc. And the first thing they think is, roti kahan se laega? The first thing they say is, where will he get his food from? The first thing they say is, that's the first thing that comes to their mind, that where will he get the food from? Or they'll say, for what? For 40 pounds a week, 50 pounds a week? These are the type of things that they say. And rather they say, no, become a doctor, become this, become that. Why? Not because the child is intelligent enough to become, and obviously if a child, mashallah, has natural talent, then that should be utilized. He shouldn't be using his natural talent in packing shelves in a supermarket, although there's nothing wrong in that job. All forms of halal rosy is rosy after all. So if a person does have talent, it should be utilized in a correct manner. Because, dear friends, aql, intelligence which a person has been granted by Allah, one of the ways of fulfilling the rights of the ability that Allah Ta'ala has given a person is that a person utilizes it correctly. Meaning that if a person has talent, but instead he just sits and he doesn't do anything at all, what he is doing is he is wasting the bounty of Allah which He has granted to him. He is not utilizing the bounty of Allah which Allah has given to him. He is not appreciating the bounty that has been granted. That's why a person who then does become an alim or a hafiz, he has fully fulfilled the rights of the ability that Allah has granted him, because he has utilized his mental capability in the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in the same way, obviously, whoever utilizes it, because not every person can become a hafiz or an alim, and neither should every person become a hafiz or an alim. We don't want, and we also know there's just few alims, how much problems we have. So if everybody becomes an alim, then just imagine how many different jamaats you will have in a masjid. So obviously not everybody needs to become an alim. As long as there's one or two alims in the vicinity, that is more than enough. And if others do become alims, fair enough. But as long as a person adopts an art, a skill, which is of benefit to the ummah, this is something which is very, very important. So a person should utilize the capability that he has. Now, going back to, with regards the thoughts of the people, that when it comes to educating their children in lines of the Sharia, deenery wise, then that's the first thing they think is, okay, where will he eat from? Where will he get his money from? How will he live? Whereas they don't realize here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَضْلًا مِنْ رَبِّكُمْ, grace from your Rabb. And you'll find that, alhamdulillah, up to date, I don't think you'll hear of any alim deen begging on the streets. Or you won't have heard that there's janazah of so-and-so alim and he died. Why? Because out of starvation. I don't think you'll ever hear anything of that nature. So, Rozi itself, dear friends, is from the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So as parents, a person must not think that if their children are going to study this type of field, that the wages are less, so he won't be able to eat enough, he won't get anything to eat. And if he adopts another art, another field, then he's going to get more. Whereas, dear friends, you'll find the opposite. You'll find those who graduate as doctors, as PhDs and whatever in various different fields, and they're still sitting at home doing nothing at all, and that Maulana Sahib, at least he's still getting his 50 pounds a week. So he's at least still doing something, and he's still earning something, and this doctor, mashallah, is sitting there and he's not earning anything at all. So he has various qualifications, and as we find today also, people with qualifications can't find work, but rather those who don't have qualifications, they can still find work, packing shelves or some other thing at all. So even without skills, they are getting a Rozi, and those who have skills, they're just sitting there without anything, and they are the ones who are now sitting worried. Why? Because obviously in their aim and their goal of achieving the certificate, etc. that they have, obviously they must have taken various big loans also. So now when they qualify and they finish, they've got that tension on their minds that now they have to repay all the debts. Whereas that person who's there packing shelves, etc., he knows he didn't qualify, he failed his JCs anyway, so financially he knows that he has no debts at all to worry about. Although this doesn't mean that you'd rather be in that person's position, you'd rather be an intelligent person than an unintelligent person. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in order to make Islah of the Ummah, deliberately uses the words for referring towards wealth as فَضْلًا مِّن رَبِّكُمْ. فَضْلًا مِّن رَبِّكُمْ. That Rozi, risk in reality is merely from your Rabb, مِّن رَبِّكُمْ. Not from anything else at all, but مِّن رَبِّكُمْ. And obviously, dear friends, those people who sacrifice their lives for the sake of deen, then when rizq is from Rabb and they're doing the work of Rabb, do you think Rabb is going to keep them starving either? That's not going to happen at all. And the same people who are, dear friends, are teaching the small children Alif Bata in the Madaris, or who are earning only 50 pounds, 100 pounds, etc. a week. We should not think that this is only what they are capable of. But they were also capable of earning a lot of money. They were also capable of becoming millionaires as other people. They could have also adopted some other field and occupation. They could have also earned a lot of money. But they are earning so little just because of the love that they have for the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For the khidmat of deen, dear friends, they have sacrificed becoming millionaires, but rather they realize that they're becoming millionaires in the hereafter. They realize how much they are earning in the hereafter. Because, dear friends, the ustad who may be getting a paltry 50, 40 pounds at the end of the week, dear friends, that 40, 50 pounds doesn't justify what he has really earned. And in actual fact, no paycheck at all can justify what he has earned. Let's say those who are in that field also should also always feel happy and proud with it, that although they may not have such great bank balances, but they are doing a lot with regards to the hereafter, as long as their intentions are also correct. So this is all فَضْلًا مِّن رَبِّكُمْ. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who grants them. And it is our downfall that because we don't have a public treasury, we don't have an Islamic state wherein we have the Baytul Mal system, it is for this reason, and because we have very stingy committee members or trustees, this is why these poor ustads are getting the 40, 50 pounds a week. Otherwise, dear friends, when there was a Baytul Mal, a public treasury in those days, the highest wage was granted to the ulama. The highest wages were granted to the ulama because of the duty that they had, because of the tasks that they're doing, and because they were now free, as in they had made themselves available for the sake of deen, where they would be teaching people, explaining things to people, seeing to the various deeni needs of the people. Obviously, they wouldn't be able to get the time to go out and do some other work where they'd be paid. So from the public treasury, a wage would be stipulated for them, wherein they would be paid. But at the same time, dear friends, the ulama of those times were also not just clock in, clock out, 5 times namaz in 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock. Either the ulama of that time were also 24/7 ulama, wherein at all times they were there to see to the needs of the people. That was also the difference between them and us today. So, فَضْلًا مِّن رَبِّكُمْ, dear friends, shows us that we should always realize that fazl, rizq, rozi is from the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He grants whoever He desires, and He makes difficult for whoever He wants to. And in Surah Jumu'ah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَإِذَا قُضِيَتِ الصَّلَاةُ فَانْتَشِرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَابْتَغُوا مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ, as I mentioned earlier on, that after the salat has been complete, then now disperse and go and seek from the grace of Allah. On this, dear friends, Fuqaha have mentioned that if a person goes to work and he seeks his sustenance after Jummah, his rozi will be increased by 70 times. There's more barakat in it. Today you find that many people, they make Jummah as a day off. They make Jummah the day off, no business, today we don't work on Jummah. Which in reality, it's a good thought on their behalf, that they think this way is the day of Jummah, we should be spending it in preparing for Jummah, in doing some ibadat, etc. So this is a good thought at least, because there are many people who don't work on Fridays because they fear if we go to work then we'll miss out on the Jummah itself. This is something good to think about. But in reality, Fuqaha mentions, and this is especially for those who are self-employed, that if they don't go to work before Jummah, they should go to work after Jummah. Because here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَإِذَا قُضِيَتِ الصَّلَاةُ فَانْتَشِرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Now He's telling us, now the salat is done, don't go and sit at home, don't go now to the qabristan, but He says, فَانْتَشِرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَابْتَغُوا مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ. Disperse, go back to the businesses that you closed before Jummah, and now seek from the rizq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So those who want to take the day of Jummah off, rather they should take the morning off, so that they can prepare for Jummah, they can do whatever extra ibadah they want to do. But in the afternoon session, they should rather go to work. And in this way, they can make amal upon the verse of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, those who go for Hajj, if they need to search and seek from the fazl of Allah, or this fazl of Allah, Mawlana Shah Abdul Haq Sahib Dawood Barakatuhu was mentioned that when it comes to people's saying, tell the children, advise people that make your children into ulama, alims, hafiz, etc. This is the answer they give is obviously where will he get the rozi from, where will he eat from, etc. The same people then, when they see the ulama kiram, as in great personalities of this caliber, travelling by first class chauffeur driven cars, etc., then they get jealous, they can't understand. And then they also comment that when they travel also, they don't travel beneath the heavens, they only travel by aeroplanes. When they eat also, they eat the best of mussels, etc. So when they see the ulama in good state, they're complaining, and they get jealous that what's happening here. And when you tell them also, to make your children also into ulama, they'll also get the same, and then they're worried, no, what will he eat from? And that's why you find that if anybody in the town has 2-3 cars, it doesn't come in anybody's eyes. But if the Imam Sahib has 2 cars, it comes in everybody's eyes. Imam Sahib, 2 cars? Where is he getting it from? Where is he getting it from? He's got his own house, he's bought his own house. Where does he get it from? So if the Mawlana Sahib has something good, mashallah, and if he has a few children, and the children also have cars or things, then people can't see this, they don't understand. Why they don't understand is because they think he's just doing this job, they can't calculating it on the wages that he gets. On this they can't comprehend that how come he has so much barakat, whereas we are earning so much grand a year, and we also driving the same old banger that we have. For years and years we want him to change our car, we're not getting tawfiq, and he changes his car 2-3 times a year. So what they base it on? They base it on the check that they're getting at the end of the day, but they don't realize is فَضْلًا مِّن رَبِّكُمْ, that he will get from sources which they do not get. And the source that he gets also is from the halal money of the masjid. He doesn't have to worry at all whether it's interest based or not, whether it's halal, haram. He doesn't have to worry of it at all, because his wages, dear friends, are coming from the masjid itself. So it's coming from a halal source, and because it's for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's deen, فَضْلًا مِّن رَبِّكُمْ, And as we'll be doing later on also with regards to dunya and akhirat, as our Hazrat Dawud Barakatuh Mashaykh also mentions that when a person asks, especially when he makes dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should grant all the ulama kiram dono jaha ki ne'mate, the bounties of both the world. They should be granted bounties of both the world, because if an alim ad-din, obviously, if his financial side has been seen to, then he can also free himself for the sake of deen. Because today what happens is, because the alim ad-din has so much concern with regards his rozi itself, and he knows if his intentions are incorrect, then he knows that what he is earning is not sufficient for him. So then what happens is, now that alim ad-din now has to start looking for rizq elsewhere. And then in looking for rizq elsewhere, dear friends, some go to that extent where they may be doing such type of occupation which is not befitting to their shan, to the status that an alim ad-din has. That's why it is very important for the ulama also that they should do work. There's nothing wrong in ulama doing business. Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam also did business, the Sahaba did business. There's nothing wrong at all for them working, as long as they work in such a manner where they are self-employed, where they maintain their own respect. Shah Abdul Ghani Pulpuri Rahmatullahi mentions to the ulama that whenever they go for money collection, etc., whatever work they do, he says, Azmat-e deen or izzat-e nafs ke saath kaam karo. Azmat-e deen, respect, honor of deen, or azmat-e nafs, and respect for yourself. Do the work of deen with respect, honor of deen, and honor for yourself. Not that you go out in such a way that the Maulana Sahib is now asking people, give this, give that, and he's going and begging from people. Then what happens is, people look down at that person. And obviously a person who is now the Imam of the Masjid, he has a great task to do. He is the one who's going to sit on the mimbar and tell the people, do this, do not do that, expecting them to listen to him. But obviously if his occupation is of such a nature that people look down at him, if his dealings are incorrect and he's telling people, seek halal rozi, they look at him first, let's practice what you preach. So this won't have an effect. So it's very, very important for the ulama of deen to be independent from the people, wherein then they can do full proper propagation of deen. So that at the end of the day, they don't have to answer to anybody. When they want to say something also, they don't have to think, well, if I say this, then I won't get this source of money from this side, or that source, this favor won't be done, that favor won't be done. He doesn't have to think of any of this thing at all. That's why Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, when he would make dua, one of his duas is, Allahumma ja'al fi ayni saghira wa fi a'yunin nasi kabira. In which he says, Allahumma ja'alni fi ayni saghira, O Allah, make me inferior in my eyes. In my eyes make me inferior, that I don't regard myself to be so elevated and so greater than other people, because this is now pride. But wa fi a'yunin nasi kabira, but make me great in the eyes of the people. Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam dua, dear friends, he says, make me feel inferior in my own eyes, so that in my own eyes I look down at myself, but in the eyes of the people, make me great in the eyes of the people. Why? Because Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had a great mission, tabligh of deen, that he had to do. And obviously now, if he was looked at as inferior amongst the people, then who would listen to him? Nobody would listen to him. But now if he had respect amongst the people, then obviously if a person is well respected, people will look at him and listen to what he says. And we know ourselves also, if an alim ad-din says something, people will listen. If somebody else just stands and says the same thing, people say, well, who is he to tell us? He's an alim. And that person himself obviously will realize, and he'll say, well, to the alim also, that rather you say it, you tell the people, this is something that you need to do. Why? Because he knows of the status that people will look up at that person, and if people look up at that person, they'll be willing to listen to what he says. Otherwise, they wouldn't. So this is the dua of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, in which there's so much hikmat in it. There's so much hikmat in it, especially for the eyes of deen, that Allahumma jal fi ayni saghira. That no matter what greatness of deen I do, amount of work for deen that I do, fi ayni saghira, in my own eyes make me inferior, that I shouldn't think that now I am such a great da'i, I am a great mudarris, I am a muhaddis, mufassir, great alim, mufti, qari, hafiz, etc. Fi ayni saghira, in my own eyes I should regard myself to be inferior. Wa fi a'yunin nasi kabira, but elevate me in the eyes of the people. And this, dear friends, elevation then will be in matters of deen only. Thus we find that our great predecessors and the current pious people that we have, the great ulama that we have, people honor them and respect them for what? Only for one thing, And that is because of the ilm, the knowledge they have, and on matters of deen. That's the only reason why people honor and respect them. Nobody honors and respects them because they're candidates for any parties, any political parties. Nobody respects and honors them because they're very wealthy, very influential, money-wise. None of these reasons why people honor them, but it is merely just because of the sake of deen. That those who have love for deen will honor the ulama, the upholders of deen. That we find there are so many great, for example, few examples. Hazrat Mufti Mahmud al-Hassab Gangohi rahimahullah, who was the Grand Mufti of Deoband of India, who passed away 10 years ago, who was a person who was very simple. He wouldn't have a great bank balance, etc. Whilst he would be in Deoband, in the Chatta Masjid where his khanqa would be, where would have his programs, his majlis, etc. In that same Chatta Masjid, dear friends, the type of food that would be served, even the influential and the very wealthy people of Deoband wouldn't even dream of having on their dasturkhan. Why? Because people from all over the world would come to benefit from him. If somebody from England goes, so he'll take some variety as gifts from England. Somebody from South Africa goes, they take something from there. Somebody from America, Canada, Bangladesh goes there. So on that one dasturkhan, on that one table, you'll have international food there, which other people, local people, would never have even dream of having. This is how فَضْلًا مِّن رَبِّكُمْ. And the same people, if you read about his life, his initial early days while he used to be teaching in Kanpur, etc., and you hear about the wages that he would get at that time, because it was poor country, and at those times obviously the ulama were paid very little. So the amount he was paid at that time, but he would just suffice on it at that time, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted him such great intellect. If you read his fatwas, dear friends, you'll be amazed how much knowledge Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted him. He was a Grand Mufti of Deoband at the time, of India at the time, well, worldwide renowned. He passed away at the age of 92. When he passed away, and he passed away in South Africa, when he passed away at the age of 92, dear friends, now obviously at that time when a person is 92 years old, you don't expect them to remember anything at all. Now when other people's names, their own name, his state was such that he would need somebody to carry him, obviously. He couldn't manage to do istinja on his own. He needed to have aids and assistants to help him. That's how weak and frail he became. Not long before he passed away, at times he would be so ill that he would be in and out of consciousness. That's how ill he was, dear friends. But still in that same stage, and at that age also, dear friends, when he comes, if you were to ask him to give dars of hadith, or if you would have a fiqhi majlis, he would still be able to mention the dars of hadith. Whereas normally at that time, a person would he'd suffer from loss of memory. And I've even got a cassette, a tape of his last few majlises. Because at that time I was in South Africa, it was my final year also, and Hazrat had come to the Darul Uloom that I was studying also, and it was his last days, and I've still got the tape recordings, where his voice is very frail, but the ulama asking him questions, present day questions, and he's still giving answers towards it. He's still quoting the ahadith and the verses of the Quran from memory. And as the hadith itself also says, Mustami maqalati, when Nabi says, whoever hears my hadith and then propagates it to others, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keeps their minds green and fresh. Meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserves their memory. That's why you hardly find any muhaddith suffering from Alzheimer's disease. That's why you find these great ustads, in their old age, they don't believe in pension and retiring. They don't think, okay, I'll work till I'm this age and that age and start my pension, start planning my retirement. Their retirement, dear friends, is when Malik al-Maut comes, that's the retirement. They don't think of retirement. As I said, they're not those clock in, clock out type of ulama. There's no such thing as retirement. Their retirement, dear friends, is when they leave the world and they're in the grave, that's when they have retired. But that's also, dear friends, they may have retired with regards to their physical presence in the world, but their presence is still in the world, because even after they leave this world, we are still benefiting from their existence. Even now you've got 19 volumes of Fatawa Mahmudiyah, of the same Mufti Sahib that I'm talking about. his fatwa is in 19 volumes by the name of Fatawa Mahmudiyah. So till now also those who study the cause of fatwa, they're still taking benefit from him. And this is just Fatawa Mahmudiyah. Besides that, he's got so many other books of his, as well as so many other disciples of his, khulafa of his throughout the world, who are doing various different forms of work, benefiting people in different ways throughout the world. In this way, dear friends, people are still benefiting from their existence, although they are no more here. So their retirement, dear friends, and yes, if they plan their retirement, they're planning, obviously, Allah plans for them. They don't have to work anything out at all. It is already planned for them, dear friends. As we know, we mentioned with regards Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, that whilst the time before he passed away, another great alim elsewhere saw in a dream wherein Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam along with the Sahaba were preparing for the arrival of Imam Bukhari. Where that person saw in a dream that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam is telling the Sahaba that take this, and he was preparing for the arrival of somebody at that time. And at the same time he saw this dream, then when he woke up, he heard the news that Imam Bukhari elsewhere, who miles away from him, had passed away. So he doesn't have to now plan his retirement. That is all planned for him, dear friends. And whatever he works, as a person he works, and accordingly he's planning his retirement, that they have this and that. So the ulama of deen, whenever they work, dear friends, in this world, all the work that they're doing, in reality, they are now preparing for their retirement in Jannah. And then their villa is there in Jannah, in front of the waterfalls, the streams and everything. So they are looking for Jannah. That's why it is mentioned that when an alim of deen passes away, when he is put in the grave, he sleeps like the first night of a bride. Why? Because for a girl, obviously, marriage is something that is very, very important to her. Well, there was a stage when it was, today they're not bothered about these things, where it would be something of great concern to the parents, which it still is. But even for the girl, she wouldn't want that she becomes old without proposals and without her getting married. So when a good proposal comes, and when she gets married, she becomes so pleased, happy. So in her first night, she sleeps so content and so peaceful, knowing that now she has the husband there. She has fulfilled the aspect of marriage. So what a peaceful sleep she has. In the same way, the alim, when he passes away also, his sleep is also of this nature. I remember our asatiza also, our ustads, when it would be time for our holidays, madrasa holidays, obviously we have to have holidays. And the holidays also, as they would so beautifully explain to us, that for students of deen, there is no such thing as holidays. There is no such thing as holidays at all. All it is that it's just a break from the normal schedule that you have. The normal schedule where you go to class 8 o'clock till 12 o'clock, and then 4 o'clock till 7 o'clock, etc. It's just a break now from that schedule that you have. It doesn't mean that now you put your books away and that's it. No more books now, you're on holiday. So it means no more studying at all. Because for a true student of deen, a true alim of deen remains a student of deen throughout his life. There's no such thing as him. Now that he's finished studying, his studying continues till he dies. That's why many great ulama of the past, merely on the various fazail virtues of a student of deen. As you know, a student of deen, Sahalallahu bihi tariqan al-Jannah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes the path to Jannah easy for him. All the various creation of Allah also make dua maghfirat for a student of deen. The angels also spread the wings of mercy for a student of deen. So just in order to maintain this reward, because obviously when a person is studying, he's a student of deen, but when he graduates, now he's worried that now he's no longer a student. So for this, they still make the intention that I'm still a student, and throughout their lives they still continue to read various different books, so just that they remain as students, so that they can still attain this reward of being a student of deen. So they will say to us that the holidays in reality are not holidays, it is just a mere change, move away from the normal schedule that a person has. And an alim ad-deen, his holiday starts when he leaves this world. Until then, for an alim ad-deen, there is no such thing as holiday for him at all. The normal weekends, he's still working. There's maybe a different schedule to the normal daily routine that he has, where he may be teaching. So this is how it should be. So I was mentioning with regards Mufti Zubair Dudha Saheb, and this is just one example, dear friends. In the same way, there are so many other examples, dear friends, of great ulama ad-deen who, with regards wages or money, they also undertook many days of faqa, of hunger, etc. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted them in such a manner that they are not only just granted, either they are in America having the food from there, or in Britain, or in South Africa, If not, then the food is taken there to them. Either they are there or the food is there for them. And as you know, many of our great saints, dear friends, we find that if you find out that this in America and then they are coming to England, there's somewhere or the other, where even the most richest of people, dear friends, don't have this privilege. And when they travel also, they don't just travel normal economy class, dear friends, they travel first class. And it's not they who demand that send me first class. They don't even bother. You call me, you don't call me. They've got their work to do. But these are people who are so hungry for taking benefit from them, dear friends, who see to all the travel arrangements. They wouldn't even know what the difference between first class and economy class. But this is the desire of the people, and this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then grants them. And then wherever they are, obviously people invite them, and food is going to be of good caliber, of good nature also. So in this way, dear friends, you find that they're eating also and the best of food, they're traveling in the best of cars. Now if you want to go from one masjid to the other masjid, there's a whole line of people waiting, no, in my Mercedes, in my BM, in my Porsche, in my this, that car. And even the richest of person, he has a desire that no, the Shaykh should sit in my car. So this is how, dear friends, the dunya comes to them. And if you looked at Mufti Mahmud Islam Gangohi Rahimahullah, dear friends, you just have his lungi, his loin cloth, and his simple white kurta on, nothing more than that at all. With regard in his pocket, he wouldn't have anything at all in his pocket. And when he passed away also, dear friends, his own personal goods, he didn't have anything at all. He didn't have his own house, he lived in the Chita Masjid of Deoband. But when he traveled in style. And that and all for free, dear friends. And this is what? فَضْلًا مِّن رَبِّكُمْ, dear friends. This is what we need to know, that this is grace from Allah. So whoever with a true intention seeks halal rozi, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants them. And a person who also does the work of deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it will never be a case that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes them starve. Just remember one example of a person who is the murid of my Shaykh in South Africa. He has a wholesale by the name of Jumbo Wholesalers. In South Africa, it's very well known, it is Jumbo, it is very big. Prior to taking birth to Hazrat, obviously like all other people, he had women who would be working there, the receptionist, the secretary would be women as normal. And then gradually, once he became close to our Shaykh and hearing his advice and all these type of things, slowly he started decreasing the amount of females that he had. To that extent, then he had 80 people employed, each and every single one were male. Each and every single person employed were male, and he himself said that after he reached that stage and the business was continuing, he himself saw how much barakat he was getting in his business. It was a well-established business, but after that he himself mentions how much more barakat he attained from it. Why? Because now he was doing it in the correct manner. Because otherwise, obviously, the women would be coming to work, dressed in whatever way, the intermingling would take place, obviously, where the boss is there and the secretary comes and gives him the files every day over the desk, and that obviously is not going to be beneficial to a person's iman, is it? Whereas, mashallah, if somebody beard and that comes and he doesn't have anything to worry about at all, does he? So it makes it easy for a person. So in this way, he himself attained great barakat from it. This is فَضْلًا مِّن رَبِّكُمْ. This is what we need to realize, dear friends. Rozi, halal rozi is very, very important. Sincerity in whatever person does is very important. And inshallah it's also very important at the end of now. We shall continue with the verses that had been recited next week inshallah, because the remaining verses are in detail.